lineup to pick from, particularly in terms of returning Springboks and stuff. Very nice luxury to have.
Yeah. I mean, obviously those guys have got some great experience. I mean, a guy like Kurtley Orense, I mean, he's come off an absolute high, scoring a great try at Twickenham. So having him when he's, like anything, when a player's like really enjoying his rugby and he's playing like he has in the last couple of weeks. So it's nice to have him back. Then we've obviously got Johan Grobbelaar back from national duty, and then Marku also, part of that, impressive win at Twickenham on the weekend. So it's wonderful for us, Heinz. I mean, I think you're right. It's a good team, playing against a very good Cardiff team who've beaten the Stormers and the Sharks this season. So yeah, it's nice to know that we've got, a little bit of backup in terms of those guys who've just come back from national duty, and obviously the guys who've done well last week.
Follow-up question, Heinz?
Thanks, Lunga. I'll be back later. Thanks.
All right, cool. Jan?
Thank you, Lunga. Thanks, Jake. You partly answered about the qualities of Cardiff, but I think all the South African teams this week and next week is going to go through this phase where you got an important game to win this week, but you also got sort of one eye on next week. How important is it to get some momentum this week, knowing that there's a much bigger picture or much bigger game next week?
Yeah. I mean, it's all relative. Next week you can only control next week after you've done your job this week. So yeah. Look, I mean, having coached in 2 competitions before, I understand the enormity of the Heineken Cup. I understand again that when you play in 2 different competitions, you have to have a squad that's good enough. So we've started preparing for next week anyway, Jan. Coaches have put some stuff together. We've got an idea of what the team looks like next week. We've actually started preparations for that as well, but without taking anything away from the fact that we need to play well against Cardiff. I'll say it again. They've beaten 2 sides that finished above them last year, Stormers and Sharks. And so they'd be on a high, just like Kurtley's on a high after his performance. I'm sure now the whole of Cardiff, as in their squad, must be looking forward to this game, having known that they've beaten 2 strong South African sides already.
Follow up, Jan? Okay, I'll assume Jan is good. Leighton?
Thank you. Morning, Jake. Jake, just on that high and the team being on a high, your team being on a high, how important will it be to balance that out? I mean, it's good to be on a high, but you have to also be wary of the pitfalls of being too high, if I can say it like that.
Yeah, Leighton, I mean, I've coached teams a lot of years now, and I mean, the nice part about sport is when you are confident and you're enjoying it and you're playing well and you're on a high. So we were a couple of weeks back, we had lost to Munster. A couple of weeks back, we had lost 2 in a row. And all of a sudden, the ship's turned around a bit, and we've managed to secure a couple of win bonus points in a row. I think 3 in a row now, which is almost like an added win on our sheet. So I don't want to downplay the fact, Leighton, that we're enjoying our rugby. We're playing well. The combinations are working. We now get an injection of some really talented players into our squad. I mean, Canan, as I said, I didn't even mention him, but Canan, Marku, and Kurtley were part of a win at Twickenham, which I know is in front of all those people. Massive win, massive high, and they bring that energy to the group. They come, and all of a sudden the training goes up a level or 2, and the energy starts to sort of spread across the rest of the group and the group that are training against them. So it's something that a coach, I don't want to put the handbrake on it. I want them to continue that. I think that's important. I want them to enjoy the fact, because when it's not going well, then teams are different. So when it's going well and you're enjoying it and you've got that positive vibe and you've got, as you say, that high, I mean, I think you must embrace it.
Jake, and just on the next couple of games, it's going to be important to keep the December spirit, if I can say it like that. It's a South African thing. Keep that in check. How do you plan on on balancing that in your squad?
Yeah, Leighton, that's let me tell you, that's from experience. I can tell you, you know, there's all when I coached in France, there's probably 6 weeks or a month or 6 weeks where you think, what the hell is happening? You know, how am I going to get through? It's like it becomes dark, and it's, you know, you lose a couple of games, or you play away, or you travel on a bus on Christmas Day, or you have to leave, you know, on New Year's Day, or whatever the story is. You just start thinking, gee, what the hell's going on here? You know, and this will be unique for us. I mean, we actually play on the 31st of December against the Sharks in Durban. You know, we play the 23rd of December, 2 days before Christmas. You know, probably would have played the 24th as well, but I mean, Christmas gets celebrated by some families on the 24th. So a hell of a unique experience for them. And then, you know, from 40 degrees, 38 degrees in Pretoria to the next week, playing in Exeter where it's -2 and it's snowing, or, you know, you go to Lyon in the middle of January, and then the next week you're playing, you know, back at Loftus, and it's the middle of January. So, yeah, what you're saying is 100% right. This next 6 weeks over November, December, you get tested. You get really tested as a coach. You get tested as a player. You get tested, you know, as a group. There's questions that people are going to ask themselves on how did this happen, because you never experienced it before. So I've said it before. I've got a lot of experience in this. I'm lucky that I understand it. I probably can be a little bit of a calming effect to the group, some of the coaches as well, knowing that this is what's going to happen. And we've spoken about it, Leighton. So to answer your question, we've spoken about it. I've from the beginning of this block, have spoken about what's going to come up. I've spoken about what to expect. I've spoken about what we want to do to handle it. You know, and as I said, week to week, it's going to maybe change because we live in a fluid environment with rugby, because you get an injury or two, but generally, I mean, the team is aware that the next 6 weeks are going to be important, just like every week. But the next 6 weeks going to be different questions that we've ever been asked as a group, and obviously as a rugby franchise. South African rugby teams have probably never been under these circumstances before. So, you know, let's see how we get through it the next couple of, as I said, the next 6 weeks.
Thanks, Leighton. Ashwat.
Good morning, guys. Hi, Jake. Just having said all of that, you must be delighted to have Grobbies back at hooker, and also Canan. I know he had an injury, so he missed a couple of games. Just their impact that they can add to the squad now.
Yeah, Ashfaq. I mean, it's I probably could have played Grobbies last week, and again, just shows me how resilient he is, because most guys are out for 8 weeks. I mean, he was literally after 5-6 weeks running on the field trying to put his hand up for selection, which again sums up him as a character. And I didn't want to risk it last week. I just didn't think that I wanted to, for the sake of one game, put him in. But yeah, he's back. And then even though Canan was out a while, I mean, he's, as I said to you just now, he's experienced a full house at Twickenham. He's experienced a win there, which a lot of teams haven't been able to do. Yeah, and I'm sure, you know, as I said, as a youngster, he's going to come back with a little bit more of a boost, a little bit more of a spring in his step. And it's nice to have that sort of caliber of play in our group. You know, as it stands now, you know, not quite there yet, but we're hoping to get a Springbok in every position, you know, in the next couple of years. And then, you know, then it'll make us team so much stronger. You know, at this point in time, we're not there. As I said, we don't have props that are Springboks yet. We don't have hookers that are Springboks yet. Obviously, Ruan is a Springbok. The loose forwards have got a couple of Springboks. You know, our halfback pairing Springboks. Our centers are Springboks. Our wingers are Springbok. Fullback Springbok. So, yeah, it's not there, but hopefully this group will teach each other, help each other to get better. You know, and I said, as a guy like Grobbies, having his energy, having his work rate, you know, having his rugby IQ, you know, on the field with this group of players, I'm sure is going to improve us as a team as well.
Jake, just on the perhaps the other side of the coin, Johan Grobbelaar, you know, he's had such a long injury layoff, then played a couple of games fullback, then he missed one game because of the 4G pitch, and, you know, SAA, the team didn't play well on tour. Where is he at the moment, and are you confident? I mean, we all know he's got the ability, but it's just a matter of putting it together and producing on the pitch.
Yeah, Ashfaq, I think the answer to that is, I think we'll see in the next 6 weeks. I think we'll see how much rugby he plays. I mean, obviously, I'd like to play him as much as possible. I think he's like anybody. The more he plays, the better he's going to become. Hasn't been ideal. I think, to be fair to him, it hasn't been ideal for whatever circumstances. He was out for a long time, had to miss 1 or 2 games, played in different positions. Probably got called in later into both teams. He was in and then he was out and then he was injured. So probably hasn't been the ideal, I suppose, environment and time, both provincially and nationally. But, as I said, he's got a long list of games now coming up. I've just got to find a way in which I can manage him with other combinations as well, and get him to play well. I think the more that he gets his rhythm on the field, and the more that he plays, that doesn't mean he must play 80, but the more I can get him in situations, the better. So it's not just Ashfaq, it's not just the game time. I think it's also the training time at 10. It's also the repeat efforts that he needs as a combination. So, I'm sure the next 6 weeks, even if he's not involved in every game, the fact that he's on the field running at 10 is going to make it much better for his development in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Ashfaq. Heinz?
Jake, he's obviously not the finished product at all. But Johan Vermaak, was quite a wiry fellow, when he was at the Lions. Are you chuffed with I almost want to say his physical transformation now and how he's building his body, it's become quite robust, since he's joined you guys, and now you can actually almost like use him in an enforcer type role at forelock.
Yeah, Heinz. Again, I can only give credit to our conditioning staff. Our conditioning staff they're some of the best. You can see when you notice that, the body shape of a lot of players is changing now. Young Hendrik Wessels is going to change. A guy like Canan Moodie is going to change, has changed already. And a guy like Johan, he's probably like for like in terms of Walt. I think he's not a flashy guy. People often didn't talk about Walt Steenkamp, but the role he played and the way that he complemented all the other players was important. So I think the fact that he's played loose forward, as in Johan Vermaak, also helps us because we get an added player that can carry, that can pass, that can obviously tackle as a lock. So that's also not that he doesn't do the lock position well. He jumps well in the lineouts. His scrumming is as good as anybody. So Heinz, it's I'm looking forward to seeing how he comes through now. I think he's going to be given a few games in this group of players. And as I said, he started the first game as a 7 flanker against the Lions away, played relatively well. He's learned about how we want to play as a group as well. So he spent a lot of time on the training field running in different positions because we wanted him to be fast-tracked. So that when we knew Walt was going, I said that to you before, that we knew Walt was going, and we wanted the sort of transition from Walt into Johan to be seamless, and I think that'll be a test for him this weekend to see how we can cover it. That's why last week I played Janku. I just wanted to make sure that, Janku's been with us the longest now in terms of him and Johan, and I thought it worked quite nicely. Janku played quite well, but it gives Johan Vermaak a chance now to make sure that he can obviously fill that number 4 jersey.
Cool. Thank you so much, guys.
They put their hands up, Ashfaq and Leighton.
Leighton, you'll be the last question online.
Thank you. Jake, just in terms of this game, will this most likely be the one giving you direction in terms of continuity with selection going forward into the next 6 weeks? Like you said, will that be the case?
Not really, Leighton. I'm going to change a couple of things already next week. Just for the sake that, because there's no ways I can keep the same group of players together for the next 6 weeks or even more. I use 6, but it's probably more to 8-9 weeks now. We play right through Christmas, and then the next week we play away, overseas to the Dragons, I think, and then we come back, play extra, we go back again to the Scarlet. So I think it's about 9 consecutive weeks where we're going to have to be, obviously have to be at our best. And there's no ways that I can play the same group of players. So I don't think it's so much where we are with this group. I think what it is it's a massive opportunity to beat a team that's beaten the Stormers and the Sharks. And if you do your sums, you know, it's like a double whammy, because the reality is if they've beaten 2 South African sides and you can beat them, you know, then what it does to the log is it gives you a bit of a buffer. It gives you a bit of a buffer above the South African conference, which at the end of the day is the one we also want to win.